The ex-wife of my husband hired a lawyer for me to pay child support for her daughter, but now she has to pay me. I feel incredibly disrespected when all I've done is be respectful. I'm having a problem with the ex-wife of my late husband who is demanding that I pay her child support, even though my husband passed away just a month ago. Dante passed away last month at 34 years old when a building collapsed on him. He didn't even make it to the hospital, he died instantly. I got a call about the incident while I was at work, but by the time I got to the scene, he was already gone. Seeing his lifeless body was like being in a nightmare. I never thought I would feel so helpless in my life. I was devastated because we had only been married 2 months before. Dante was so excited about the wedding because he believed it was his second chance to be happy. His marriage to his ex-wife Helen hadn't worked out, but they had a 7-year-old daughter together. Throughout my relationship with Dante, Helen was always around. She was the typical problematic mother. She took every opportunity to squeeze money out of him and disrupt our plans. Despite all this, I was always very kind and welcoming to Tasha, his daughter, because none of this was her fault. I even agreed to have Tasha visit us during the holidays because she was also part of my family. Despite how cordial I was, Helen never liked me. She told me many had come before me and that I wouldn't get the ring. When Dante and I announced our engagement, she nearly had a heart attack. I remember the look of disbelief on her face. She couldn't even fake it when she congratulated us. It was obvious it wasn't genuine. Anyone could have noticed. Well, she never liked me, that's clear, from the beginning. Even though I was indifferent toward her, when Dante passed away, she reached out to me, understanding my pain. Because of their history, he still held a special place in her heart, obviously. She was the only person I could talk to about how I felt at that moment. I didn't feel like anyone else understood the pain I was going through. I haven't felt like myself for a long time. I've been trying to finish the paperwork and settle his estate, which has also been very draining for me. I wish I could leave it for a time when I feel stronger, but it's impossible. I've been managing his estate over the last month, and I'm almost done. Dante left a college fund for his daughter, but he left everything else to me. Now I own his house, his car, and all his savings, of course. When Helen found out about this, her kindness suddenly disappeared. She had the audacity to ask me when I had the chance to tell Dante to change his will. I reprimanded her for even suggesting that I influenced him. I didn't know when Dante decided to change his will, but it was his choice. If he had left me with nothing, I would have been fine. It wasn't my fault that he was always so thoughtful, you know. Helen continued making assumptions about Dante's will to the point where I stopped interacting with her. The only time I would was when we accidentally ran into each other somewhere, like the mall. When I saw her, I immediately went in the opposite direction. I thought if I ignored her, she would go away, but that wasn't the case. She was planning something even worse to throw at me. A few days ago, Helen brought Tasha to visit me. She said Tasha missed me a lot, so I allowed her to come. I assumed Helen wouldn't stay, so imagine my surprise when she settled in at the house. She started commenting on how nice everything looked and asked if I had already started redecorating. Then she said it must be nice not to struggle financially. At that moment, I began to wonder what her real intentions were with those comments. That's when Helen told me she had been struggling to take care of Tasha. Dante used to pay child support, but now that he was gone, Tasha wasn't getting anything. Helen assumed I would continue paying child support, but so far, I hadn't. I respectfully replied that Tasha wasn't my biological daughter, and I wasn't obligated to support her. Besides, her father left a sufficient amount of money for her college. On top of that, Helen had a good job, so I was sure she could use some of that to take care of her own daughter. Helen was stunned by my words. She said she couldn't believe I could be so cruel to a child whose father had just passed away. I told her this wasn't the best time to talk about this. I had just finished settling Dante's estate, and I was also going to have additional expenses now that Dante wasn't around to help with the bills. Asking me for money right now wasn't helping. Her response was that I was being selfish and unreasonable. She claimed that she had been waiting for a day like this when I would make Tasha suffer just because I was her stepmother. I defended my love for Tasha to Helen and told her things weren't going well financially at the moment. But if we could revisit this conversation later, we could come to an agreement. Well, obviously, she didn't want to hear that, which only frustrated me more, and I lost control. The next thing I knew, I saw red. I asked Helen if that was the reason she had reached out to me during the funeral. Was she trying to make sure I would continue paying child support for Tasha, or was she trying to get more money out of me? She denied all of this and claimed I was accusing her of things she would never do. That's when I reminded her how difficult she had made my relationship with Dante from the start. She ruined our date nights, left him broke, showed up at his house unannounced, and did everything possible to sabotage our relationship. But still, we prevailed. From the beginning, she's always tried to make my life difficult because she simply resented me. She knows she can afford to take care of Tasha, but she wants that responsibility to fall on me. I love Tasha, but she's not my biological daughter and is certainly not an orphan. Her mother is alive and financially stable. Then Helen claimed I didn't understand her situation, that she had many expenses and debts I didn't know about. I asked if she thought she was the only person in the world with expenses. I had them too, and on top of that, I was dealing with my grief and trying to keep my job. I was struggling to get through each day, and I didn't need her adding more stress to my life. I was simply asking for time to revisit this conversation in a few months when I was in a better emotional state. Then we could find a plan that worked for both of us, because I truly wanted to help Tasha. But none of my words seemed to get through to Helen. She took Tasha and left. Before leaving, she told Tasha that I didn't want her in the house, which was a lie. I tried to explain to Tasha, but Helen made sure they left quickly. Now my husband's daughter hates me because of her problematic mother, and here I am, trapped with all these conflicting thoughts in my mind. First, I'm still dealing with the loss of my husband. I don't want Tasha to hate me forever, but I also don't know how to stop it. Update 1. It's been 2 months since my last post, and during this time, I've started to heal. I've also been supporting Tasha with what I can. I read all your comments, and they helped me make a decision. I now realize that I was being hard on Tasha because of my conflict with Helen. It's not Tasha's fault that her mother and I don't get along. At the end of the day, Tasha lost her father, and I need to be there for her. After giving it some thought, I reached out to Helen to ask how much she needed. While I couldn't give her the full amount that Dante used to provide, I offered what I could. I had to reorganize some things, but I finally found a way to contribute to Tasha's expenses. Over the past 2 months, I've been paying child support to Helen, and it's been going well. Helen has kept me updated on how Tasha is doing, and I see her every other weekend so we can spend time together, just the two of us, without Helen around. Tasha is still very sad about her dad. She's old enough to understand that he's in heaven, but she misses him a lot. What made things harder for her was that Helen doesn't have any photos of Dante in her house. When I found out, I decided to give Tasha some pictures of her dad. I didn't do it with bad intentions, I just wanted the girl to have a picture of her father. However, Helen was furious. She sent me a message asking when I had asked her permission to give those photos to Tasha. I thought Helen wouldn't have an issue because, well, Dante was Tasha's dad. Helen explained that she didn't like having photos of her ex around, and that I should have consulted her first. I felt like she was overreacting, but I decided to back off. Instead, I made a photo album for Tasha, which she'll have when she's older. This problem with the photos isn't the only time I've clashed with Helen. She's been asking for more and more money, claiming she has extra expenses. When I told her I couldn't give her more, she tried to make me feel guilty. I had to remind her of the agreement we made, and I'm not even obligated to help her. I do it out of the kindness of my heart. If she keeps pushing, I might stop helping altogether. I don't know why I was so naive to think she would be grateful. Has Helen ever been grateful for anything in her life? No, she's always acted entitled, like everyone owes her something, when in reality, that's not the case. She feels she deserves the money without showing a bit of gratitude. I don't want to go back on my word, but I'm getting tired of dealing with her. It's not just about the money anymore. She complains about everything related to Tasha. She complains after every visit, saying I'm teaching Tasha bad manners. The poor girl just lost her dad, doesn't she deserve a little comfort? For example, the other day, Helen exploded because I gave Tasha some ice cream on a hot day. She accused me of trying to make her baby fat, as if a little ice cream could harm her. I tried reasoning with Helen, reminding her that Tasha is grieving and sometimes needs small gestures to make her happy. Helen's response was, "Don't tell me how to be a mother." So I decided to step back because I don't want her to stop Tasha's visits. But I don't know how much longer I can tolerate Helen's craziness. Update 2. So that's it. It's over. I can't take it anymore. I'm done. I'm not going to pay child support for Tasha anymore, not when her mother is so ungrateful. I've never in my life met a person with such a sense of entitlement. Do you remember how I told you that Helen was demanding more money? Well, the situation has gotten worse, and it's only been a month. On top of that, she has decided to hire a lawyer to harass me. Things have gotten out of control quickly, and I'm still trying to process it. A few weeks ago, Helen demanded that I double the child support I was giving her. She claimed it wasn't enough to cover Tasha's basic needs. Apparently, she somehow thinks she knows what I can afford and believes I've been holding back. I had a few words for her, which I won't repeat here, but basically, I reminded her that she should be grateful for what she was already receiving. Our argument ended with her threatening to sue me for child support. I dared her to do it because I was ready to fight until the end. I never thought she would actually do it, so imagine my surprise when I received a letter from her lawyer demanding that I double the payments. The lawyer threatened to take legal action if I didn't comply, just as Helen had said. I responded to the lawyer that there was no way I would do that, and, well, it was like opening Pandora's box. Over the last few weeks, Helen and her lawyer have taken turns harassing me. Her lawyer in particular is on the verge of unprofessionalism with all the threats. He's even said that they'll put me in jail and seize all my assets. I don't think that's even possible just for child support. I've repeatedly told them to leave me alone and that I'm not going to pay more than I've already been giving. In fact, they're pushing me to the point where I don't even want to pay a single dollar more. Not a penny. Not even a debt collector would harass me this way. I'm exhausted. Every morning, I wake up to a flood of insulting and threatening messages from Helen. The threats have escalated to the point of suggesting physical violence against me. After receiving several of those threats, I got scared and decided to consult my own lawyer. Honestly, I didn't want to involve the law. The last thing I need right now is a legal battle. But Helen and her lawyer have forced me into it. I had no choice but to spend money I don't have to hire legal help. Actually, I feel relieved I did, because my lawyer told me what they're doing is completely illegal. Unless I adopted Tasha, I'm not legally obligated to pay child support for her. Only her biological parents are required to do that. Even though Dante passed away, that responsibility doesn't fall on me. Well, unfortunately for her, she made a big mistake by involving the law in this. Now I've decided to be, well, a little spiteful. I'm going to take her to court. I don't just want to win, I want her to pay back every penny I've already given her. And don't even get me started on her lawyer. He's been bullying me illegally, and I refuse to lose sleep over this nonsense. So, I'm going to take them to court, and I'm going to make them regret trying to manipulate me. I'll keep you updated on what happens next. Update 3. I've got some hot gossip that'll probably burn your mouth. You won't believe what just happened. Do you remember how I consulted a lawyer about Helen and her lawyer's intimidation tactics a month ago? Well, after that, I decided to open a case against them for harassment. My lawyer did everything necessary and they got served the papers. The moment Helen received them, she called me in a panic. She was freaking out, asking why I had to take things so far. I had to remind her that she was the one who wanted to take it to court in the first place. She was the one who instructed her pseudo-lawyer to harass me and threaten me with legal action, so I was just giving her what she wanted. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me anymore. I told her that if I had to pay double child support, I'd rather a judge tell me, not her. Suddenly, Helen changed her attitude. She asked if we could meet to discuss the matter like adults. Obviously, I had no interest in talking to her anymore. The only time I'd meet with her would be in court, so I told her negotiations were off the table, and we'd settle this in court. Shortly after, my lawyer contacted me with surprising news. Helen's lawyer could no longer represent her. I was confused and asked what that meant. That's when my lawyer explained that Helen's so-called lawyer was actually her nephew, who was still in law school. Helen had paid her nephew to pose as a lawyer just to intimidate me. When they received the court papers, they panicked. Helen's nephew even begged my lawyer not to go through with the case and pleaded with him not to tell me. But of course, my lawyer was obligated to inform me of everything. Plus, it wasn't my decision anymore because what they did was illegal. Pretending to be a lawyer and bullying someone is a crime, and as a law student, Helen's nephew should have known better. When the case finally went to court, I had everything I needed, messages, emails, whatever, everything proving their threats and harassment. The judge didn't like any of this, especially that Helen's nephew had posed as a lawyer. The judge was extremely insulted. As a result, the state filed separate cases against Helen and her nephew. They were both fined for harassing me, and both received restraining orders. If they ever try to contact me in person or online again, they'll face jail time. To top it off, they also have to pay me back all the money I had sent them as child support. But that's not all. Helen's nephew made the biggest mistake of his life. All his years of studying to become a lawyer are down the drain. He was expelled academically and disqualified. He will never be able to study law again. His actions showed a complete lack of integrity and respect for the legal profession, and the judge made an example out of him for what happens when you try to play lawyer. I almost feel bad for him, but not really. I can't even imagine how crushed he must feel. His dreams of becoming a lawyer are completely ruined, and now he has to start his life from scratch. He was so close to achieving everything he ever wanted, and now it's all gone because he couldn't stop pretending and bluffing. Helen and her nephew should have backed off when I told them to. They should never have insisted on harassing me. They should have known they had no legal basis for making empty threats, but they didn't, and now they've lost everything. Honestly, it's been a wild experience, but I'm glad it's finally over. Let this be a lesson for anyone who thinks they can bully others. It won't end well. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, it seems like this chapter is finally closed. Update 4. I really thought everything was settled, but there's one last thing I need to share with you. Consider this my way of thanking you for your support throughout this whole mess. None of this should have happened. And honestly, if Helen had just been satisfied with the little I kindly gave her, things wouldn't have escalated to this point. Or at least she wouldn't be in the hospital right now. Well, remember her nephew, the one who got disqualified? It turns out his parents were absolutely furious with Helen for involving their son in her schemes. You can imagine the time, money, and resources they invested to help their son get into law school, only for him to ruin everything. Now he'll never have the chance to become a lawyer, and his future is ruined because of Helen's selfishness. Helen's sister, who is the nephew's mother, was so angry that she attacked Helen at her workplace. She waited for her in an empty parking lot after work and confronted her. By the time security arrived, it was too late. Helen ended up with a broken nose, some seriously damaged ribs, and her face badly beaten. Who would have thought? I always thought Helen's sister was a real sweetheart, but I guess anyone can throw a punch when their child's future is destroyed by an adult who should have known better. The sad reality is that Helen should have known better. She should never have involved her nephew in this crazy plan. If she was so desperate, she could have asked a friend to pretend to be a lawyer, or better yet, she should never have demanded more money from me in the first place. I'm pretty sure she just wanted more money to keep funding her unsustainable lifestyle. It's no secret that she loves designer clothes and expensive trips. Dante and I always suspected that she was using some of Tasha's money to fund her little luxuries, but we never said anything because Tasha was being taken care of. Now, her whole house of cards is collapsing, and honestly, I don't feel the slightest bit guilty about it. This is what Helen deserves for harassing me during my time of mourning and trying to squeeze money out of me. And, to top it all off, she had the audacity to intimidate me for months. I was just trying to help her for God's sake, but she had no mercy on me, and now I have none for her. Update 5. It's been 6 years since I was last here. I know because Tasha is now 13 years old, and this update is about her. For those who don't remember, Tasha is the daughter of Dante, my late husband, and his ex-wife Helen. The last time I heard from Helen was when her own sister sent her to the hospital after the fight that broke out following the whole fake lawyer and lawsuit saga. If you recall, Helen had involved her nephew, who was in law school, to pretend to be a lawyer and harass me. Things ended very badly when the nephew was expelled and disqualified from studying law. After all the scandal, Helen's mother intervened, basically forcing her to let the matter go after all the damage she had caused to her family, especially her nephew. Although Helen's sister ended up being sued for the assault, the situation didn't get too complicated for her since Helen's mother made an effort to make amends and calm the chaos. As you can see, Helen's family is quite dysfunctional, but luckily they're not my family, and I distanced myself completely from all of that. The relationship between Helen and me was definitively cut off after she returned all the child support money that she had illegally demanded from me. That, of course, only added fuel to the fire in our dispute, and we haven't had any contact in all these years, which has been a relief. Now, what I really want to share with you is that, after 6 years, Tasha reached out to me again. It was something completely unexpected. We hadn't had any communication since Helen cut off any possibility of us seeing each other, as she demanded that I give her more money. Needless to say, that wasn't going to happen, so Tasha and I lost contact, despite always having a very good relationship. A few months ago, I received a message on my social media from an account I didn't recognize. It turned out to be Tasha, who had been looking for me for a long time. She told me that she missed me a lot and wanted to talk to me again. She explained that her mother, Helen, had been a very difficult person over the past few years. I was very surprised to receive that message, not only because I thought Helen had influenced her daughter to forget about me, but also because Tasha was taking the initiative to reach out to me on her own, despite everything that had happened between her mother and me. Since then, I've given her my number, and we've been in regular contact. We talk every week, and it's as if those 6 years of no communication hadn't passed. She tells me about her life, school, and friends. For my part, I tell her about my life, how these years have been for me, and how happy I am to hear from her again. It's been a relief to reconnect with Tasha because, although I'm not her mother, I've always loved her very much. It was very painful for me to lose contact with her when Helen decided to cut me off. I always made it clear that I wasn't financially responsible for her, but that never meant I didn't love her or value the relationship we built while I was with her father. When Helen completely cut me off after I stopped paying child support, it hurt a lot, but I understood that there was nothing more I could do. However, knowing that Tasha feels she can count on me and wants to stay in touch has brought me a lot of peace. Edit. I want to address something that some people have been suggesting since my last post, that Helen might be behind all of this, that maybe Tasha is contacting me for some hidden reason. I've thought about it, and honestly, I don't think that's the case. Tasha hasn't asked me for anything, not money or any other favor. We just talk, and our conversations haven't been about complicated topics or anything involving her mother asking for something. Of course, I know I need to be cautious, but for now, everything seems genuine. If at any point something strange comes up, or I suspect that Helen is manipulating Tasha, I wouldn't hesitate to cut off contact again. I'm not naive, and I'm definitely not willing to go back to that toxic situation. Tasha has told me that although her mother is difficult, Helen has never neglected her or failed to fulfill her responsibilities. As far as I know, Helen is still taking good care of Tasha, at least financially. So even though her relationship with her mother is tense, it doesn't seem like Tasha is in any urgent need. In any case, I'll stay vigilant and proceed with caution.